Alright guys, it's Chatterbox Reviews, coming at you guys with my review for Whiskey Cavalier Season 1, Episode 2. Alright guys, so I do want to first just apologize for this one being a little bit late. Of course, this episode was on Wednesday night, and I meant to actually have this reviewed on Thursday, but then things fell through, and the review didn't end up getting edited, and then went through some technical difficulties there with that one. But anyways, so we're here for technically the second attempt, I guess, at this review for Whiskey Cavalier Season 1, Episode 2, The Checklist. So, kind of a, a punny title there as well. But anyways, overall, guys, I said after the pilot last week, I was pretty impressed by it. I thought it was really great at what it was trying to be, a network pilot, and I thought it was actually kind of unique in the way that they were doing it, putting a creative spin on a well-known genre, as I said in that review. But this episode was quite disappointing for me, guys, and I want to be honest, right? It just kind of lost that whole feel of being creative, and to me, it just felt like another network show after this episode. But of course, we'll get into it. We'll go over a recap, kind of a relatively short recap of this one, and then I'll go into my rating, favorite character, and some more overall thoughts of this episode, and what maybe going forward we will see in this series. Also, the ratings for this one went a little bit farther down. And I have noticed that the popularity for it, though, a lot of people who actually, are invested in it, who love the pilot, are kind of sticking around. But those who kind of thought it would be more than what it is, are kind of jumping ship at this point. But anyways, so, of course, if you like the review, please be sure to leave a like and consider subscribing to the channel. Would really appreciate it. And also, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this episode. What did you think of it? Did it kind of measure up to your expectations after this pilot, or did it disappoint you like me? I'd love to hear you guys' thoughts on this one, and also what the series may have in store for us going forward. But anyways, without any further ado, let's get into this recap. So, we start off the episode. It seems as though they're going to be doing this with future episodes too. They did the same thing with the pilot. They kind of show us a short sequence of the mission, and then they get the intro, and then the actual mission kind of starts, right? I actually like this kind of format. It gives you a little bit, for someone just tuning, switching the channels and whatever, and stumbles upon this, I think it's definitely something that kind of reels in people in those first 2 minutes. They play the intro, and then they get into the episode, and I actually really like that format, so I gotta give them that. So, as the new formed team stations themselves in Vienna, Austria, to take down, but they have to keep them alive, right? But they want to take down this known criminal coordinator, right? And, he has basically, his retina scan is what's going to let them get into this bank vault, which is basically, the keeper of this ledger that keeps all these criminal actions and all these criminal names of these criminals, international criminals, in this ledger, right, in the pages. So that is what their mission is. So everything is going as planned, right? It looks like they got everything going. They got Standish, basically, locking the car doors and stuff so they can't get out. You got, I forget his name, but the bartender back in last episode, he comes in and with this little robot car, right? And then you see, of course, Will stationed with a gun there, making sure everything's going as planned. Frankie is the one who's going to basically, kind of infiltrate the car, if you will, or finally get the guy out of the car. And so anyway, so everything's going as well as planned, right? They get him out of the car, and just as they get him out of the car and are about to take him into custody, a van pulls up with a woman with blonde hair. They call her Blondie, I think, in the episode, but it's the black woman with the dyed blonde hair, right? So she pulls up and just suddenly opens fire on the guy, their target, right? Killing him there in the street. And the biggest thing is, yeah, that's not a big deal. He's a criminal, but they needed him alive. That was the biggest part of it, right? Is that they wanted him alive so they could get his retina scan. And so, of course, that basically ruins the complete mission for them there. So, they shoot him down, they leave him in the street there, but they are forced to leave the scene as the police come, and they don't want to make too much of a, they don't want to make too much of a commotion, right? With them being FBI and CIA operatives and this big case, they don't want to kind of make a big scene there. So, anyways, So we get the intro playing. Now, a really great song there by John Newman. What is it called again? Love Me Again, I think. Really, really great song. So I do like that intro. So then we get, later they go to the morgue, right, to find his body. Kind of a funny scene here, right? There they try to get his eye scanned for the eye retina scanner, basically, at the vault, right? So they go to the morgue, they find his body. You know, she pulls out this lipstick, container that actually serves as a retina scanner. So they're going to download his scan and then use that scan to then get into the vault later. So they technically don't even need him alive then, right, at this point. But it would have been much easier, right, with him alive. So as they're in this process, of course, at the morgue, they are met by the same group from before with the woman with the blonde hair, right? And so they basically are forced, that or Frankie is forced, to cut out this guy's eye out of his socket, and they put it in a bag. She throws it to Standish, or Edgar Standish, right? Played by Taylor James Williams. He has to put it in the bag, right? And then they basically are forced to run, right? They're forced to run out of there, run out of the room after basically they set the whole morgue on fire, this whole room on fire, including his body, right? So that this other group can't get to him and can't get to his other eye, which would also open the vault in the end anyways. So a success for now. They're able to, avoid this other group and still get his eye, and are able to then register it for a scan a little later. So then we get back, and their new boss, by the way, the old one got killed last episode, right? So their new one now tells them that they need the retina scan of the man's ex-wife, who is living in Prague and is currently unaware, or was unaware of her husband's criminal background, right? So already a difficult task to go and find this woman and get her to basically come and, give her eye scan to open this vault, but also the fact that she's unaware of the background, and that's also going to cause a little bit of a situation there, right? So they must get to her before the other group, of course, and then we get the boss tells them that he's assigned a new liaison to their team, and of course it's Ray, the guy who cheated on Will, basically was fooling around or sleeping with his fiance after they broke up, and so that obviously was a big part of last episode, and that whole thing I wasn't a huge fan of this episode, bringing him back. I thought the actor was actually doing a pretty good job. I thought he was actually pretty funny when he was on screen, and those parts, but it did seem really contrived, really forced, and I didn't understand why Will just didn't try to beat him up every time he saw him. That didn't really make a lot of sense, especially after what they left off with last episode, and Will punching him right across the face right when he knew, and he was like beating him on the ground, and all of a sudden now he's just okay with them, and he even lets Ray try to hug him. So that to me seemed a little forced, but again, I kind of like the dynamic there, so I'll give him that. So then we get to in Prague. They execute a honey trap. That was a big thing of this episode. I'm surprised that wasn't the name of the episode, actually. Given the basic focus of this one. Anyway, so they execute this honey trap where Will essentially tries to seduce the ex-wife into the ex-wife of this criminal guy, right, into basically giving them her retina scan to open the vault, right? And so, of course, they're playing on the fact that she's unaware of his criminal background, and so, of course, they're going to try to seduce her a little bit into doing that. And then after being coached by Frankie over the ear device there, he lines up a dinner date with her later that night. And, of course, we get this whole dynamic of Frankie not being confident in him being able to do this because of his emotions, because of his feelings that he has developed already, we've seen, and so she's not very confident in him, so she ends up coaching him, and they're able to get that dinner date lined up. Do want to just mention the ex-wife in this episode. Karen was played by Bellamy Young, Scandal alumna. She's awesome in Scandal, playing one of the most kind of difficult, dynamic characters, I would say, on Scandal in that show. And again, this is another ABC show, so you see the connection there. But it was really great. I would have liked to see her in another pilot this year. I'm not sure if she's in a show right now, but I would really have loved to see her as a series regular in this show. But yeah, she's an awesome actress. I really do like her. And I think she had maybe the best performance in this episode, to be honest. So then, as Will's out for dinner then with Karen, things are going well as he starts connecting with her over their feelings for losing their husband and fiance respectively, right? So again, we see that emotion, that feeling coming into play a little bit more. And then Ray basically basically calls calls Frankie and the rest of the team and tells them that the group that they saw before, who tried to get them at the morgue and the ones who killed the guy back in the Vienna, Austria streets there, are in Prague, and they've been identified there. So Frankie then goes out to save the day, right, on her motorcycle, and we got some really cool shots of her kind of riding. So that was actually really cool. So anyway, she goes out to save the day, to save Will from this attack that they think is going to happen at this restaurant, right? So then Will has taken out his comms, right? And they can no longer communicate with them. And so he takes out the comms because they're basically arguing and yelling all this stuff in the background when he's trying to focus on Karen and talking to her. And so he takes out these comms, and so that means that they can't warn him about what's happening. So of course Frankie then responsible to go and save the day. So then she arrives a little bit late after Will's ambushed by all three of them, by the woman and a couple of the goons there, and is able to take out all the guys except for the woman who goes loose. And of course she comes back later in the episode. So that was a big one that hurt them. So then after he is able to subdue them, Karen agrees to help and kisses him. So we already see this emotion. And actually it turns out, of course, you've seen the episode, both of them are playing each other. I mean, Will was playing her at first, and then actually fell for it. Karen fell for it at the very beginning and then played him at the end. So really kind of interesting to see this dynamic here. But anyways, so then Frankie comes in, shoots the last guy down who's about to actually probably get Will when he's not looking as he's kissing Karen there. So Frankie did save the day, ended up. But then, of course, we see after this scene that Frankie is worried about Will getting too connected with Karen, as she reminds him that she's the target, right? She's not this, girl that you're going to get with or anything like that, right? And so, again, the big part of this episode was the emotions and the connections there and the difference between Will and Frankie, and kind of which approach is better. That's kind of what they're, arguing about throughout this episode. So, anyways, so that was really great too, but of course the woman goes loose, right? So then when they get down to the vault at the bank with Karen, right? So that was a nice little scene of them kind of going in there. They lie about being the lawyer, and then she says, here's my assistant, and Will just kind of looks, that was actually one of the moments I actually laughed pretty hard at that one. That was a nice little thing there. Scott Foley is great at the facial expressions. Honestly, his facial expressions are maybe even better than when he's talking and when he's acting. I mean, he just is really great at that. But anyways, so of course, when they're at the bank, they are ambushed by the girl right as they get down there, right? The girl and a couple of her new goons, right, with guns are there, making him open the vault for them with help from Karen, of course, because they need both of their scans. And it turns out that they've basically computer printed a scanner that he can put on his eye and then line up to this machine, to the vault, right? So as they open the vault, Karen grabs the ledger from the drawer, and then she steps out as Will remains in and reveals that she and the blonde girl were working together the entire time, and they actually end up kissing in that scene. So it turns out that they've been partners, not just from a relationship standpoint, but also business standpoint, because they've been in this one together, and it looks like for quite a while. So this was actually a nice little twist on this one. She begins then to burn the ledger, saying if it got out, that it would have caused her a whole world of trouble. So obviously we know that she does know about his criminal background, and that they were obviously misled there. So anyways, she orders them to lock the vault with Will and Frankie in it, and they are stuck in there with basically no way to get out, as we see then in the next scene. So anyways, Frankie was right, Will got played, which is a big thing in this episode, right? Because she was telling him all along that he was getting played, that he was getting too close to her, and all of a sudden, he gets played, and they get locked in this vault. So, really awesome twist there. So, the two are stuck in the vault then. Meanwhile, Standish stalls all the nearby traffic lights to keep Karen and the other woman close, so that they eventually can get to them once they get Will and Frankie out of the vault. They try blowing up the wall beside the water main of the vault there with Will's watch. The water begins flooding the vault, right? The goal is to short the lock, but it turns out the water quickly fills up the room there, right? And the two are forced underwater. really kind of a, if you're claustrophobic, it's a really kind of tough scene to watch, with them basically almost drowning in this one, in this little confined room, where this explosion just doesn't seem to work at first. Eventually it does, right? So just before they go underwater, though, Will apologizes to her and admits that he liked her. He did actually like Karen, and he fell for her, as it could be their last moments before they ultimately drown, right? And Frankie actually accepts the apology and says that it's not the worst quality to have after all. So she says, basically kind of forgives him, and we see that she was maybe taking it a little too far, with some of the stuff she said to him, and of course she apologizes, a little bit too. So they kind of both, give each other a little bit of an apology there, of course, as it could be their last moments, right? Their last few moments. So anyways, so that was kind of a nice little thing there, where we got a little bit of emotion there between the two, as well. So anyways, then luckily after just a few moments of them being underwater, the lock is shorted, the plan works, and the door opens with Frankie and Will, and they are, kind of forced out, and they actually kind of swim out a little bit onto the floor there, and that was actually a really kind of cool visual there. So then we see the team comes to see them, Standish and the other two, and Will immediately knows they must find Karen, as she has a photographic memory that was mentioned earlier in the episode, of the ledger, even if she burned it. So she still knows what will be in that ledger, even though it's burned now, right? They can't see it, but if they get to Karen, they know that she will remember what's in it, and that they can give, or that she can give them all the information they need, right? So then we see they quickly track both of them down as the women flee into the subway. So this was actually a really cool sequence here. We actually, one of the women kill a civilian, or at least hit a civilian with one of her shots. So obviously not a very, an actual bad person, right? Not just someone who's, trying to get this ledger and fighting for it. She actually kills, a citizen, an innocent, citizen in the process. So obviously not really any remorse for her, right? So Frankie tracks down this blonde woman, right? She tracks her down and tricks her basically into thinking that she ran out of bullets. And this was actually a nice little standoff kind of scene, with them both behind the pillars there. They both run out of bullets, so they come out, right? The woman pulls out her knife, right? She's like, oh, well, like, you've no bullets left either. And then Frankie kind of tricks her. She changes clips, and she shoots her down. Says, I always bring an extra clip, and takes her down. So that was an awesome thing there, and that's really what it took to take down this woman, as she may have lost that fight. I mean, if you're talking about a knife fight, and Frankie doesn't have a knife, that would have probably ended pretty badly for her, but she is able to take them out. And then meanwhile, we switch to Will, and he finds Karen, saves her right before she is about to jump in front of the subway to kill herself, because obviously she knows that her memory, and she's able to tell them exactly what's in that ledger. She doesn't want it to get out, obviously, but he's able to save her from jumping in front of that subway, and basically Will not going to be tricked again by her antics. She even tries to kiss him even in this scene, tries to get with him a little bit again, pull on those feelings, but he's not going to get tricked this time. He threatens to put her in a hole so deep that nobody could ever find her. Of course, this will happen if she doesn't tell him, or doesn't tell them what was in this ledger. So awesome stuff here about Will kind of learning his lesson and not falling for those antics again. Frankie very impressed as she walks by. So that was some really great stuff there. Then to end off the episode, they go back to this in facto bar, right? This kind of hideout, safe house that they're at. And you see the team toasting. They're back in New York now. Standish plot is concluded with his whole thing about talking to girls and lying to them, to get with them and stuff. Ray taken care of by Frankie as she pulls his brakes from his car. That was pretty awesome. Karen then spills what's in the ledger. And that's about all, folks, right? That's about all. That's the conclusion of this episode. So everything's kind of resolved. And now on to next week. Alright, so now let's talk about the episode in general here. So my rating for this episode, I'm going to give it a 3.6 out of 5. This is pretty low for me. I don't typically go down below 4, believe it or not, on my episodes. But this was honestly just what I worried about. Going through this recap, I thought it was actually an intriguing story this week. Thought it was a good twist. Obviously kind of a foreseeable one, but a good twist in that you had some good character dynamics. I really did like the dynamic between Frankie and Will. But it was just what I was worried about. And I said this in the pilot too. A big step down here from the pilot. I said that when I saw I used the Crossing example. I saw the Crossing last year. That pilot, one of the best network pilots I've seen, honestly. And I've seen quite a few. So one of the best network pilots I've seen. The second episode was a complete step down, and then every episode after that was just worse. And so it's very unfortunate to see this. And I believe this show is going to be very similar. The pilot was awesome. I thought it was really great at what it was trying to be, a network TV show. Kind of a buddy cop type of crime drama, right? And this was just a big step down for me. The tone, not consistent at all in this episode. And that's the biggest thing that I appreciated about the pilot, is that they never took themselves too seriously, or at least in my eyes. I never felt in any of those situations that they took themselves seriously, and that it was kind of an upbeat, funny, comedic tone throughout. This one, no. That was abandoned. There were definitely some serious points in this, and just some really lazy writing, some nonsensical writing at times, many cliches and tropes used in this episode. That one scene where Standish tells, it's Anna Ortiz, but I forget her character name, that basically like he lived a bad child or something with a single mom and whatever, and that's why he lies to the girls. And then later it turns out that he was just lying to her, and that she totally believed him. Like, that scene seems so contrived, so forced. It was just a big cliche used, and it was just really contrived. So, to me, and again, that tone was serious there. But, in fairness, they brought it back. Okay, he was lying. It was just kind of a funny thing. But then later on, Anna Ortiz goes on this big monologue and basically, tells him off. And it's like, what? First of all, it doesn't have to do anything with the mission that we're at hand right now. What happened to this comedic tone? Everything kind of being funny, not taking yourself too seriously. And now you're giving a big, monologue or a big rant about how this guy is lying to women, right? To get with them. And it's like, that had nothing to do with the current story. It's like, obviously, maybe an important, relevant theme or something like that. And it was kind of cool to see Anna Ortiz's character kind of standing up and giving that type of speech, if you will. But it just did not work in context of the episode or the story. So to me, it's stuff like that it just really lost me about network shows about 2 years ago, to be honest. And it's just, to me, it really detaches me from the story and what's going on. So to me, this was not, it was definitely a big step down from the pilot, and the tone was the biggest thing that I liked about this one, and also the biggest thing that contributed to this show's creativity and uniqueness. I said off the top, this is a well-known genre. This stuff has been done so many times before, but the tone itself, to me, was the one thing that set this show apart from a lot of other network buddy cop crime dramas. And to me, this episode really just made this show just another network buddy cop crime drama show. It really did. I mean, yeah, there's some good acting. I will say, there's some good acting. I thought all of the main cast has been good so far. Scott Foley, Lauren Cohan, definitely really great. Anna Ortiz, Tyler James Williams. I believe the other guy is Avi Nash, right? Or Avi Nash. He's good. And it's like, it's good acting, but it's just bad writing and like lazy writing. And it's like, it's not these actors' faults. I don't think so. I think these actors are actually, this is one of the best casts I've seen for a network show in a while. And, it's just really unfortunate to see that the writing is making them look bad. And I don't think they deserve it. But anyway, so really disappointing episode in terms of tone and that area there. But anyways, personally, guys, I don't know if I'm going to continue this one. After the pilot, again, I thought it was a creative, unique show and a kind of a nice spin on it that I haven't seen before. But after this episode and knowing where they want to take this, it's something I've seen before, and, I might check out the next couple episodes. I don't know if I'll do reviews for them. I might do maybe some recaps for them, but I don't know. I really thought this show was going to be more after the pilot. I kind of fell into the trap these pilot for these network shows. But anyways, so I'm a little bit disappointed, guys. But anyways, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this one too. Don't get me wrong. If you guys enjoyed this, I perfectly understand that. I know a lot of people are just willing to watch network shows for an hour, kind of turn their brain off, just want to be entertained. And I will give them this. There was some really great choreography in this episode, in the action scene in the restaurant there. I actually thought that was pretty damn good for a network show. That was actually up to par with some of the movie choreographed, action scenes and stuff that I've seen. So that was good, but it's just the writing and the character development and the interaction stuff. It just takes so much away from it that you really, really have to try hard to be invested in just the action and the visuals. And it's so tough, especially for me. So that's just where I'm at. Favorite character for this one, I got to go with Will Chase, played by Scott Foley. Great guy from Scandal as well. So you got some two Scandal alumni here in this episode and in the series now. But anyways, Will Chase obviously playing on the whole emotion part and him being emotionally attached. Obviously played a big part in this episode. He ended up getting played and and of course he had to face that, and Frankie is right in the end, but she says that's not the worst quality to have. So anyways, we'll see where that dynamic takes him, and of course his dynamic with Ray continuing on as well. We all know that by the end of season 1, Frankie and Will probably be together. That's how all these shows go, but of course we'll have to see kind of the roller coaster ride to that point along the way. But anyways, guys, those are my thoughts. Whiskey Cavalier. Disappointed for this episode. Really thought this show would be a little bit more than this, but it is what it is. Anyways, guys, thanks so much for watching this review and recap of Whiskey Cavalier Season 1, Episode 2, The Checklist. Really do appreciate the support on the first review. Some comments views, likes, a lot of people checked that one out, so I do appreciate that, and I do appreciate the support on the channel recently. I really do. I'd like to thank you guys. So anyways, guys, hopefully we'll see you next week for the Whiskey Cavalier Season 1 Episode 3, but we'll have to see. I'm not sure if I'll be back yet or not. I probably will watch the episode, give it a chance, and then go from there. But anyways, guys, again, thank you so much for watching this one, and I'll see you in my next video.
No, I turned wrong, left your heart torn. Is that what devils do? Took you so long, where only fools go. I shook the angel in you.